everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, and Brian Kilmeade. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five.
As they take a knee collectively, boos can be heard from this sellout crowd in Arizona.
While NFL players and owners continue their anthem protests, President Trump is not backing down. He had a lot more to say on the subject at a White House news conference earlier.
I was ashamed of what was taking place because, to me, that was a very important moment. I don't think you can disrespect our country, our flag, our national anthem. I was at Walter Reed Hospital recently, and I saw so many great young people, and they're missing legs and they're missing arms, and they've been so badly injured. And they were fighting for our country. They were fighting for our flag. They were fighting for our national anthem. And for people to disrespect that by kneeling during the playing of our national anthem, I think is disgraceful.
The president and the NFL have been fueling debate on the issue since Friday, when the president suggested any player protesting the anthem should be fired. And so now, Brian, we are 5 days into this story. It is not left the front pages or the top of any of these news shows. So where do you see this going after last night's Monday Night Football game?
NFL, it's in the NFL's court. They have 48 hours to get it done. Are also going to see more antics on this Thursday. And Roger Goodell, I think, is just given an unfortunate set of circumstances and challenges and previous commissioners did not have to tackle. And I'm being totally honest. A lot of this is, thanks for the hand grenade, Paul Tagliabue. Everything's going to blow up on my watch. So I know it's not easy, but he should have handled this a year ago, just the same way he handled the red, white, and blue cleats and the pink cleats all year long. But the NFL has to meet with the union right now, and I hope they're doing it. Don't tell the press, just get it done in a way that the players are going to feel comfortable and that nobody walks out feeling like they lost. Because right now, the only people losing are the fans. They're getting angry. They're forced to say to themselves, am I giving up on my patriotism if I spend $500 at a game with my kid?
Mm-hmm. Jesse, that is an interesting thing about, can this end by either Thursday Night Football or on Sunday? But has the point been made by both sides, or is there basically, do both sides benefit, in their opinion, by keeping this fire going?
No. I don't think the kneelers benefit at all. The fans are sick of it, and the owners are going to probably get the point very, very soon. Trump is on the side of the country. You said it before. He's associated himself with the flag, with the anthem, with the country, and everybody kneeling is against that. So I think he's clean on that. Trump's just not president. He's a crusader, especially on this issue, and that's what drives the left so crazy. So in an effort to destroy Trump, they're actually destroying the football season. And it's unfortunate because I think now a lot of people like Ben Roethlisberger said, wait a minute, I don't really like the way we handled that by not coming out into the field.
What's he going to do?
Jerry Jones, well, exactly. I mean, it's kind of the coach's deal, so he was trying to do the team thing. Jerry Jones tried to have it both ways. They knelt before the anthem and then stood during the anthem, but still got booed. You have Von Miller, the linebacker for the Broncos, lost an endorsement deal because he knelt, yet the guy Villanueva from the Steelers, best-selling jersey right now in the league. So freedom isn't always free. There's consequences, and the market usually determines what's right and wrong. And they polled the issue. 38% don't support kneeling. 72% find the protests to be unpatriotic. So the left's losing the culture war, and they don't even realize that by tearing down monuments of the Founding Fathers, by supporting kneeling during the anthem, by supporting sanctuary cities, by siding with Kim Jong-un over Donald Trump, this is going to be a blowout in 2020 if they keep this up.
It's interesting, Kimberly, that this, ever since Friday when the president really drove this home at that rally, there was a huge amount of writing, people either tweeting or commenting on television, but then the writing, I've actually been really interested to see. In fact, I read somebody, Matt Begley today, he's a former Marine officer who wrote in the Weekly Standard saying, I fought for their right to kneel. And I feel like there might be getting towards some way for people to find some, not common ground. Standing for the anthem is an absolute in my mind, but some understanding of like, you have problems, you have concerns, let's talk about them and try to work them out and not have to use it as a way to sort of protest and ruin the football season.
Right. I mean, this was, you know, the issue of Colin Kaepernick, right? This was one man's idea to do this, and then all of a sudden, when you really ask all of these NFL players, you know, What is their grievance? What are they protesting? What is it that's so wrong? And I couldn't agree with you more. I think this is really an issue straight up with Roger Goodell, because I think this could have been avoided. This, in my opinion, this is bad management. He's essentially the CEO.
Yep.
Absolutely. And now it festered and it metastasized. And now we have this where everybody feels uncomfortable. And the viewers, the fans, like, at what price are they going to continue to do this and alienate their customers? You see what I'm saying? When you look at the numbers and what Jesse is saying and just approaching it from sort of, a business perspective, but yet balancing the interests in the field. Yeah, sure. Let's all. You want to have a team meeting? Let's talk about how everyone's feeling. They want to bring in counselors in the locker room? I don't know. I don't know what's happening these days with football. All right. It's a little rougher with my son playing flag football. It is these days.
The whole country's going to be playing flag football soon with the CTE, which is even a bigger story,
100%.
the head injuries than
Absolutely.
Let's get Juan's take on this, because I don't know if you saw similar. There's, you have the sort of the editorial commentary lags a few days behind these big events, and I wonder what your takeaway has been.
Well, I think, one, on the polling, I think most people say they're still watching the NFL, and the ratings are not down. President Trump said, oh, ratings so far. Nope, the ratings aren't down.
But he might take credit for the
They are down.
ratings
They are
going
not
up
down. They were not down this past weekend. Monday Night Football was not down.
Monday
But
Night Football
hang on,
was strong,
hang on. No,
but
it was
all the
not.
other Sunday games were down
This
year
was
to
not.
year.
This is a big, fake news type situation.
Ratings don't lie.
The second thing to say is
no,
that
you didn't.
when you hear President Trump talk about, oh, the flag, oh, the national anthem, did he fight? Did he go to war? Oh, no. But secondly, that's not what the flag is about. America, as represented by the flag, is about our values, our freedoms, our right to protest, to raise our voices, to come together as an American people when we think that there is something wrong. And today, Dana mentioned this in the Weekly Standard, it was written, anybody who doesn't know that black people have a different experience than white people with cops is living in a bubble. They are intentionally blinding themselves to reality. And when you get 70% of the NFL players who are black saying, there's something wrong here, and all we're trying to do is call it out, guess what? You get people like Bill Russell, the famous NBA star, taking a knee. You get someone like this. Look at this picture. This is an Army veteran, 95 years old, taking a knee in support of the NFL players. 97 years old, World War II vet in Missouri. You also get people, you ask Dana, is this thing going to continue? Is it going to grow? Look at what happened in baseball. Look at the Oakland A's player taking a knee yesterday. Okay, now it seems to me these are white people taking a knee. They understand there's something bigger at stake here than the way the president all of a sudden wants to wrap himself in the flag. Like anybody who would say this, oh, what happens when we fly the flag at half-staff, Mr. President? Isn't that a symbol?
But he's right, Juan, that these are private teams. These are private
They
teams,
can do
not a
anything
government
they
team.
want.
You're absolutely right. So they can say, are we taking a
could've
knee
stopped
here
it.
at the table? No, we're sitting in our chair. We're doing our show. There's a time and place and manner, for everything. So the point, this isn't just, okay, do whatever you want. They're playing for a team. They're signing a contract. They're getting a paycheck.
Right.
There's bargain
And
for
what did
consideration.
their team say, Kimberly? Their team and the league said, we understand that you have a legitimate grievance,
Right.
and you are seeking to use your platform to make sure the country is aware.
Of course, they have
and
to
we
be
agree and we
understanding.
embrace
They don't
it.
want to walk out.
But their platform would exist outside of the football field. I mean, in their communities, in their states, a lot of professional athletes do great work and a lot of charity work, and they have platforms beyond the sidelines.
I'm going to do Dana Perino, big picture.
Oh,
Realize
I
we
like
have two
this.
issues that we continue to debate at each other instead of to each other. The president sees it as patriotism. I don't think you have to join the Army or Navy or Marines to be a patriot and salute the flag. I think you agree with that. So the president thinks it's patriotism, and the fans who are upset, let's say like me, see it's about patriotism. And then the people taking a knee, the athletes taking a knee, say it's about race. So what we're trying to say is I can't even get to the race issue because you're disrespecting the flag.
Right.
If you found a way to get me to that race issue, I'll meet you there. But fundamentally, we're in the same family. We live in the same house.
Common
Don't
values.
comment on the house. Fix the house, but let's live in it together. And someone's saying, hey, this country isn't even good enough for me to stand and salute the national anthem.
Yeah, that's
so
sad.
it's race against patriotism.
I don't think-
They're not mixing.
No, I think you're framing the conversation in a way that benefits your side. But
What's my side? I just said there's two sides.
Oh, no. Because, Brian, if it's all about do I love America? There's no question I love America.
Don't take
This is a
any
land of
But
opportunity.
your symbolism says you don't.
No. Okay, so now we're talking about symbolism. I'm glad you
What's a
granted
flag?
that point.
A
All the
flag
flag
is a
is
symbol.
a symbol. The reality, the substance of that flag is this is a great country where I'm allowed to express my opinions freely, and I'm not to be punished by the commander-in-chief, the president, by telling my employers,
not punishing
get him out of here. Get him out of here. Fire that
I want
lady
Jesse to
at
comment on that,
ESPN.
because I do think there is commentary that is interesting about should the president of the United States, whether it be President Obama, Bush, President Trump, be telling a private organization who they should keep on or fire. I mean, did that cross a line?
I think Trump was more defending the flag, defending the honor of what the flag represents.
Of those who have served.
And avenging the assault on the national anthem. I agree that fighting police brutality is noble.
Right.
There's a lot of people, when they kneel, they're saying, I am rejecting police disrespect of black men. But when they do it during the anthem, they're disrespecting servicemen.
Oh, no.
That is the problem. People died for the flag.
But there's
People
people
were
that feel that
shot
way.
and paralyzed,
I agree.
Juan, and can't kneel for the anthem because they were shot by a sniper in Iraq or
Or they don't have
Afghanistan.
legs.
This Iraq war veteran said this: real men don't take a knee for what they believe in, they stand up and fight for it.
Right.
There's a lot of veterans out there that feel very disrespected when they see players kneel during the anthem.
They got to remove the argument from the anthem, and then we'd have a totally
Yes.
different different conversation.
So in other words, before this happened, everybody was properly focused, or did, in fact, people on the right diminish and demonize Black Lives Matter as a bunch of thugs who were
So
cop
this is
haters?
Black Lives Matter?
Oh, it certainly is. That's what
Kaepernick
this
made
is
it so
about.
much worse.
This is about a protest against unfair, brutal tactics used
Well,
by
I think
cops
that
against
was,
black people.
let's give Kimberly the
According
last
to
word, because that
me,
was
I'm telling you, right
the
now.
original protest. But
The
at this
original,
point, when you have so many different players, if you ask 25 of them, why are you protesting, you might get 25 different answers.
You might. That's what I'm saying. It's so disparate in terms of what the specific individual reasons might be. You know, if we were all on the same team and everybody went around and asked each one of us, well, what are you kneeling for? What does it mean? But you're right. It's now become attached in a way that I think is counterproductive to the anthem. So now even more people feel alienated and upset. It is in no way to diminish or disqualify or demean people's feelings about what's going on in this country or the need to shine a light on any kind of brutality or, by the way, crime in neighborhoods or even black-on-black crime. I mean, there's a lot of things that are upsetting that we should do something about in this
keep in
country.
mind, I was just with law enforcement regularly, just at a major event. They have a pushback on the feeling that they have two separate laws or enforcement as it relates to color of skin. So law enforcement wants to say in this, if that's going to be the talk. I do remember this. After hosting a show with Jim Brown, he talked about in the 60s going to meet then, I think, Cassius Clay. You would know as well as me. And he said, we wanted to find out why he was not going into the draft. But before they made a comment, they went and met behind closed doors with Bill Russell, might have been Will Chamberlain, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And they met, and they came out and they go, he told me, this is really something that I respect. I'm going to go in, you know, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. But Muhammad Ali told me that this is his pure thought, that I will not fight. This is against my religion. How many people sat down with Colin Kaepernick around the league? They have 6,000 players. 12 or 5 said Colin Kaepernick is on the right path. 12 up until the president spoke. That is not Muhammad Ali, I will not go to Vietnam moment. But yet now it's getting that type of tension.
It certainly is, and it's going to be the cover of Sports Illustrated this week. And guess what? You see, they say the sports world united in a nation divided. So it's not as if this is going to stop, Dana.
It's really interesting. It's interesting, and it's a lot deeper, I think, than maybe we all realized on Friday night. So we're going to move on. A lot of eyes are on the special Senate runoff in Alabama today. Will the president be able to pull off a win for incumbent Senator Luther Strange? Stay right there. We'll tell you.
It's been a busy day in Alabama as the Senate primary runoff between Luther Strange and Roy Moore is underway. While President Trump backs his guy, Big Luther, his former top aide Steve Bannon is stumping for the other candidate, Roy Moore. Here's why.
I think Roy Moore is the guy that's going to represent Donald Trump and fight the establishment. I mean, it's very simple. This election is $30 million being spent by Mitch McConnell and that crew of corrupt and incompetent politicians and consultants. The hardcore Trump people, we're not here to defy President Trump. We were here to praise and honor him. And we think the best way to do that is to send somebody to Washington, D.C. out of Alabama, the good folks of Alabama, to send somebody that's going to have Donald Trump's back.
So this is very unorthodox, Kimberly, for the former White House senior advisor to leave the White House, campaign for the guy who's running against the president's hand-picked guy, but he's spinning it as, I'm doing this because I support the president.
Yes, he's saying that he's out there doing this because he supports, and he's the most hardcore Trump supporter. So therefore, in order to put forward the president's agenda and proposals and ideology, this is the person that he has to go with in order to effectuate that outcome. But then it really does suggest undermining the president's choice and the president's decision, because the president went with a different candidate. So if you put this man in office, Donald Trump, because you believe that he would be the best person to make the decisions, to make the choices and the calls and put forth the agenda, you would perhaps think, okay, well, maybe we should honor his choice and his selection. But that's not what's happening. So I find it fascinating. And we're going to see if anybody's living on Regret Island. We're going to find that out tomorrow.
It's going to be lonely there on that island. Juan, you yesterday used a phrase, a little offensive, called Roy Moore, I think, Ayatollah.
Of Alabama.
Of Alabama.
Yes.
Why did you say that?
Well, remember, he got in trouble because he refused to take down the Ten Commandments monument for outside of a judicial building in.
People love that in Alabama.
You asked me why.
I'm saying that, and people
well, I mean, if you believe in religious rules as opposed to, living our country under constitutional laws, that's more like an Ayatollah than a judge. That's why I said that, Jesse. But secondly,
a little offensive, but I'll carry on.
No, I wouldn't want to offend anyone. But I'm just saying, the second part is, then he says, I'm not trying to offend you. But the second part is, then he says, oh, the Supreme Court ruling on gay marriage? I don't think we should enforce that here in Alabama. So I guess he doesn't like the idea of living in a country of laws.
So that brings us to, if Roy Moore is nominated, then does win. So Roy Moore now is Senator Moore. Is that going to be problematic if a guy like this, who's a little bit of a live wire, according to Juan and maybe some Democrats,
you gave me a
gets
wink.
into the Capitol building and has to start answering questions that could be very controversial?
Well, I guess that's a possibility for all of them. I do think that the reason that the incumbent, Luther Strange, who was, now remember, he was appointed after Jeff Sessions was nominated by President Trump to be his attorney general. That left an opening in the Senate. Luther Strange is the appointed person. That's why we're having this runoff between the two Republicans. If you ask Lindsey Graham, who was a senator of South Carolina, really attacked during his primary by 5 or 6 different opponents, and that really spread it all out, and he was able to scoot by, and he was fine.
On a horse, I guess.
Well, and then if you consider now, you just have Strange and Moore. There was Mo Brooks as well. So there weren't that many people to spread it all out. Roy Moore is super popular in Alabama. I wouldn't be surprised if he is able to win tonight. But the reason incumbents are supported, like Luther Strange, is because that's how you build majorities. If you support the incumbent person. The interesting thing for me on this, and I asked Sean Hannity about it yesterday, is I can understand supporting Roy Moore for a lot of reasons, but saying that he would be more supportive of Trump's agenda than Strange would be seems strange to me, because Roy Moore, up until recently, was against the wall. He's also against Graham Cassidy. And Luther Strange has been for those things from the beginning.
Interesting.
And yet they think that somehow President Trump had the wool pulled over his eyes by the establishment, and therefore they're going to be able to, do him a solid by getting him the real guy that he wants in there. It's very strange in Alabama.
Strange and stranger.
Yeah, first, I'd like to apologize for Dana for not preparing for your segment, Jesse. Obviously, so we'll talk about that in the break. Number 2, it's going to be who gets the Mo Brooks votes. I get that. Number 2, I talked to somebody that used to be involved intimately with President Trump, and he believes if Moore goes through, he'll be as problematic to President Trump as Rand Paul. And that he'll be going against the tide quite often. And for President Trump to call into Rick and Bubba, who is the blowtorch in Alabama, and I'm being serious, they're awesome.
Kingmakers.
And he called in, and he did it. He said, basically, I don't even know Roy Moore. He called him Ray.
Wow, that is a huge insult.
And he said that Luther, he says he'll be there. He's a good guy, and he's tall. So I think that he would be the guy. I'm just fascinated to see, because Luther Strange has not been leading in any poll up to date right now. He would probably go without any Democratic opponent, a substantial Democratic opponent. They say if Moore wins, look for Democrats to put $30 million into taking him out.
Wow. $30 million into an Alabama Senate seat. I say liberals, pour that money in. Coming up, the parents of Otto Warmbier lash out at North Korea in their first TV interview since their son's death. They spoke exclusively with Fox News. See that next.
We see North Korea claiming to be a victim and that the world is picking on them. And we're here to tell you North Korea is not a victim. They're terrorists.
Well, that was the father of late U.S. hostage Otto Warmbier with his wife Cindy lashing out at North Korea in their first TV interview since their son's death. More in a moment, but first, President Trump delivered another tough message to the rogue regime at a news conference earlier.
It is time for all responsible nations to join forces to isolate the North Korean menace. We are totally prepared for the second option, not a preferred option. But if we take that option, it will be devastating. I can tell you that. Devastating for North Korea. That's called the military option. If we have to take it, we will.
Okay, Dana, so the president again addressing this issue, not shying away from it, taking it head on today. Again, talk to me about the kind of progression of the messaging here. Has it been consistent? Do you see any escalation? And where do we go?
I think it has. I think for him, and he knows that America is on edge about it. And he also, I think, has to keep talking about it because he knows that Kim Jong-un is listening to everything that he says. So are our allies, which is important. So is our military. But the most important audience, I think, for him right now is he's got to be talking to Little Rocket Man as often as he can to make sure that he understands, like, no, I'm not distracted. I'm on top of this, and don't you worry, because we have a military option and we aren't afraid to use it. I know that makes some people uncomfortable. They think the rhetoric is getting too high, but the truth is that Rocket Man is on a path to getting a nuclear weapon if he doesn't already have that. Marrying that technology is a concern. What I'm very interested in is how in the next week and 2 weeks, President Trump figures out how to deal with the Iran issue, because by October 15th, he has to decide to certify or not that agreement under the congressional law. And whatever that decision is will make that makes a big difference for what happens in North Korea and in Iran going forward.
Any educated guesses? I
think that everybody, if you're very interested in this, you should look at the speech that Nikki Haley gave. She's the UN ambassador. She gave a speech at the American Enterprise Institute laying out how President Trump could actually certify but tell Congress, you have to decide on the sanctions piece and put it back in Congress's court.
I think you should post every day for, your recommended reading. One little, concise article.
And then Jesse can roll his eyes.
But
exactly.
Knowing Dana, she would charge for it, so it's all going to cost us eventually. Well, a little bit later, I'll find out whose pen this is, but it feels right in my hand. Okay. So the Warmbiers sat right behind you today, talked to Ainsley, and I talked to him after, and they just told in a very calculated way, trying to hold back their emotions, what it was like to see your kid, not in a coma, but blind, deaf, with the bottom of his teeth were pulled out and put back in different places, with his foot cut open, clearly tortured. So that's how much this kid was beaten. And I think it's so important for people to understand what we're up against. And that's an American. Can you imagine what he's doing to his own people?
Well, we know.
And for those people who want to say the President of the United States, for one thing, that gets to the President more than anything else. Syria, when he saw the kids, when he found out the details of this from Tillerson and company, that gets to him more than anything else. And I would like to add one more thing. If you look at the fact that the President puts out a list with North Korea on it, people say, North Korea and terror? What, are you kidding? That's why Mr. Warmbier came out and said, of course, they terrorized my son. They're terrorizing their own people, and they're getting away with it. And that's the message of today. That's what we're up against. It's easy to turn away and say those crazy, that crazy hermit kingdom, but we're going to be embarrassed for our generation when we take the cover off that country and we see the torture that was happening. And we let it happen.
Well, that's the problem. And you know what? You don't want to forget about things like this. It's real every day when the Warmbiers wake up in the morning, when they go to bed at night.
He took a poster down.
Yeah, they actually know the savagery of this nation of North Korea and what they have and what they're capable of, what they're doing to their own people and what they're threatening to do to us. So at a certain point, you got to deal with it, Jesse. And the president is actually, to his credit, saying, I will deal with it. I'm not going to pass the buck to the next administration. It's too serious.
And that was just heartbreaking, the things you just described.
Torture.
It's crimes against humanity, I believe, and it's not just the Otto situation. I just read something about he goes and picks out schoolgirls in school
Yes.
that are beautiful and then brings them back. He's a serial rapist, this guy.
Yep.
He
Yeah,
poisons
sex
dissidents,
slaves.
starves his own people. He fed his uncle to dogs. So I think right now the president's trying to rally the country, not just around the fact that they're a security threat, they're a threat to all humanity. When the left, and they've been doing this pretty effectively, they almost put Kim and Donald on the same plane. And that serves to diminish and trivialize the threat, and it turns Lil' Kim from a bully into a victim. And Chelsea Handler said, I wish we could trade leaders. And then Touré the other day was saying, I think that Lil' Kim was right in saying that President Trump's rhetoric was over the line. ABC Terry Moran, we heard him say that President Trump's threats constituted crimes against humanity. Whoopi says both people are very unstable. That has to stop right now, because I think it does a lot of damage to the United States' credibility.
Well, I think I'm interested in this conversation because it sounds like you guys are just saying, it's okay for President Trump, given the horrors perpetrated by Kim Jong-un, to do anything. Like, we need to just rally and support the president no matter what. And I just have to stop and say, wait a second. I mean, don't forget, we've heard from Steve Bannon when he was at the White House. We've heard from McMaster, and we've heard from Mathis at the Pentagon, that any kind of military effort is going to have tremendous loss of life connected to it because of the proximity of South Korea, Japan. This is going to, and our own troops are there. So you have to stop and think about this. And don't doubt for a second, President Trump's rhetoric suggests that he says, if required, and I don't know if this means preemptory action, he's willing to totally destroy North Korea. This has not engendered support for us. Jesse, to your point, it's made people around the world start to think, wait a second, what is Trump doing? Why is he talking like that?
So it's actually
suddenly,
the opposite
suddenly
of that,
it's
After
raised,
he said that, the Chinese banks slapped major sanctions on North Korean financial institutions.
You heard from the Chinese
and the South Koreans and the Japanese leaders said
you heard
both
from the
of the
Chinese
speeches that the president's given have been very strong and very effective.
What the Chinese said was restraint is necessary. What the Russians said, this is spiraling out of control. We need diplomacy, not
But we're doing
increased
that.
We had diplomacy for the last couple of decades, and now they're on the cusp of nuclearizing.
The Russians did great diplomacy with Georgia and Ukraine. They are great.
Yeah, I don't think we need to we don't need to listen.
We're going to get it back soon.
Listen to them. Okay, well, thoughtful deliberation and diplomacy, and then military strength if needed. That's what's happening. President Trump addresses the growing humanitarian crisis in Puerto Rico next on The Five.
Welcome back to The Five. The devastation across Puerto Rico from Hurricane Maria, it's just heartbreaking. The Trump administration working to ease the humanitarian crisis. The president explained how, and he announced an upcoming visit to the island.
I'd like to take a moment to send America's hearts and prayers to the people of Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. I have directed all relevant departments and agencies to assist in the response and recovery effort. I will be going to Puerto Rico on Tuesday. Our nation has been tested by the destructive force of Mother Nature, but we will respond to it with an even mightier force, the resolve of the American spirit.
Kimberly, this is an interesting story because the island is devastated. They're looking to the U.S. to help, and of course, they keep reminding people that the citizens of Puerto Rico are U.S. citizens.
Yes, they're Americans.
And then the comparison comes in, are we getting less than the kind of support and aid that went to Texas and Florida?
Well, okay, maybe that's fair questions, right? We never are not going to be damaged by a healthy discussion and evaluation to say, okay, where are we spending the funds? We want to make sure that it's equitable. I think that's fair. And this is a place that's suffering tremendously in terms of the devastation at the ports. Roads need to be repaired. ports rebuilt so they can actually get in the right amount of help and supplies and resources that are necessary. I talked about on the show the other night, Dr. Manny is down there now doing a tremendous job and working with the hospitals and the doctors and nurses. So many of those talented professionals had moved elsewhere during the economic time crises with Puerto Rico. So they were already in a financial state of instability, then hit by a brutal blow by Mother Nature. It couldn't be, more of a disaster for them. So I'm really happy the president is paying attention and that he is letting the world know that he's going to, focus eyes, attention, and resources on Puerto Rico, and by actually, going there to help these people. And Geraldo is there as well.
Jesse, this morning, though, the president was tweeting, wait a second, Puerto Rico has a broken infrastructure, massive debt. In fact, they've got $73 billion in debt, and saying, hey, maybe they are responsible for some of the level of devastation.
I don't think that was the message. I think he was just telling the truth and framing the issue to say that, yes, they have a lot to recover because this is where they started from. The new line of attack with the left now is that President Trump's so obsessed with the NFL controversy, he's not paying enough attention to Puerto Rico. That just means the left was losing the NFL snafu and now are retreating and circling back to attack him on Puerto Rico. From what I heard, the governor of Puerto Rico said that the president's been very supportive, although I saw Geraldo down there earlier, and you got to trust Geraldo when he's on the ground, and he's, from the island. They need a lot of help, and they need it fast. And like Kimberly said, the infrastructure is not in place to deliver it. So I'm glad that I was doing a story to show the spotlight on this island because it's incredibly tragic. But the most important thing, once you get the relief and the recovery, and I've been there, El San Juan Hotel, El Conquistador Hotel, beautiful places. If everybody, if they want to, book a trip. When this place gets back up on their feet, book a trip to Puerto Rico. Go spend some money there because that's really what the island needs is our support.
A moment ago, Dana, Kimberly, and I were talking about the fact that Puerto Ricans are Americans. One of the realities, though, is that the mayor was crying and saying, you have to understand, we are devastated. And I think you were pointing out the crops are gone.
Yeah, so this is a story that 80% of the crops and agriculture in Puerto Rico, it's gone. Also, they have no power. And you have an immediate crisis with the dam that is about to break. Hopefully it will not. But you have 700,000 people in the wake of that dam that could actually be in grave danger. So the need is overwhelming, and so we've got to get all sorts of things down there. But to rebuild agriculture, that means if there's no agriculture, that means there's no fruit, there's no vegetables, there's no food and sustenance. So we have a big job to do in Puerto Rico.
What was interesting to me, Brian, is that Mitt Romney, of course, who ran for president, former governor of Massachusetts, said that he has been in touch with Puerto Rico and he is calling on his fellow Republicans to get involved, and points out that the Puerto Rican representative to Congress is a woman, Jennifer Gonzalez Colon. She's a Republican.
Right. I think he's 100% right. I think it's so easy to focus on Houston, the Virgin Islands, to Florida, to all the other challenges, North Korea. It's not like we don't have a lot going on.
Mexico.
However, people want to quickly say, well, the president's not putting enough attention to Hispanic people. That's quickly, there he goes again, because I guess Texas is more has enough Hispanic people, but I guess not enough for a lot of his critics. Some have pointed out that they are not a state and they don't pay federal taxes. It should not matter. I would still send the Navy over there. I would still send everything you can to rebuild it. But, Dana, not only do they have power, they don't even have a grid. They need a brand new grid. This is going to be like rebuilding a mini Iraq when we took over. So that's what it's going to need. And we're writing checks on overdraft right now. So that's going to all play into this tax discussion.
Yeah, it's why we need tax reform for economic growth.
Yeah, I think this is it's complicated. Anyway, much more to come on the 5, including a very big announcement about Madame Dana Perino. Stay right here for the big news.
Madame. It's here. It's happened. A major step forward for women in Saudi Arabia. Today it was announced that the kingdom will allow women to drive for the very first time ever. Saudi Arabia was the only country to have a ban on women driving. The change will take effect in June of next year. So those who are arrested, paying the price, possibly in prison for driving, I hope will be free. Do you think this is a good move, Kimberly, or should we go back to the old system of not letting women drive?
Gosh. Since I think women are very good drivers, myself included, Right, Dana?
Yeah, she's a
Exactly.
great
We still have to do our driving segment. Drive Dana around. It's going to be great. Look, this is like unbelievable that this is the news story today, right? You say to yourself, wait a second, is this like some kind of joke? How is it that women were not allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia? Wow.
Yep.
Right.
When you think about that, something that we, say, okay, everybody should be able to drive. They finally got this well-deserved right. You can't even believe this is the modern day.
Juan,
God bless. I'm glad
Saudi
they did.
Arabia, in many ways, really discuss not only women's rights are an issue, but at least they can drive around to now have a little bit of freedom. They were giving almost no freedom.
I mean, I just think it's not I don't understand it. I understand that they have a much closer adherence to their religious laws, but I think this was so much, it's antiquated and crazy, and I think discriminatory. Just
Yes.
One of the statements along,
Amen, Juan.
Jesse, along with this release was the police will now have to be trained to interact with women in a way they rarely do in Saudi Arabia, a society where men and women who have very little contact.
Ooh. Wow, interacting with women. That's, I guess it's a real problem for the Saudis. Who's going to train the police to interact with women? It's so ridiculous.
send you?
I can't even believe it. No, please don't send me.
Jesse's busy.
Because we get so much oil from this country, we don't always exert the full leverage that we could. This is finally something that's happening that's been progress, and I applaud them, even though it took a couple hundred years.
Women will be taking less cabs. It could hurt the economy.
Actually, I'm going to argue the other way around, and that is, I remember Condi Rice.
You're
giving a
against
speech.
women driving?
No,
okay.
about the economic impact. I actually think that what Condi said a few years ago, right before we left the White House in a speech there, she said, you cannot expect your economies to grow if you withhold 50% of your population from participating. And so this actually makes a lot of sense. The new leader of Saudi Arabia is trying to do some modernization. This actually doesn't take effect until June of 2018.
Right.
But it's certainly a big step forward. And I do think that Dina Powell at the National Security Council, and I don't know for sure, but I imagine that Ivanka Trump weighed in behind the scenes to try to make this happen.
And the relations with this administration in Saudi Arabia are extremely good. I would just add this, in all seriousness, there's women in jail right now because they tried to drive.
Yep.
They protested about it. You have to let them out. One more thing is next.
It's time now for one more thing. Our own Greg Gutfeld, you might have noticed, isn't here tonight, and it's because he's getting a very special award. Greg is receiving the Barbara Olson Award from the American Spectator tonight at their gala in Washington, D.C. Barbara Olson was an American commentator. She passed away on September 11th. She was a passenger on American Airlines Flight 77, which flew into the Pentagon. She was a real hero because she called her husband to tell him. That's how we have a lot of the information that we have. She was a hero, and Greg is much deserving of this award. The American Spectator itself turns 50 years old this month, so that means that Greg is older than the American Spectator.
Low blow.
All right, well, we have a very special announcement today on The Five. Incredibly proud of one of our own who represents us so well every day, and now she's going to continue to represent the channel in a phenomenal way with a very special show, because Dana is going to daytime with the Daily Briefing, and that's weekdays every day at 2 p.m. Eastern. But don't cry, Five fans, because she's also going to be here at this table every night. And Dana, we just want to say you've done such an incredible job here, and unbelievable. We're so proud of you. God bless you. And you've been on that show at 2 o'clock before, and you were fabulous.
I'm really excited for it, but I also recognize that without the Five, there would be no 2 o'clock show.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
This is
Thank you, Jesse.
Dana will join her
Can't
colleagues.
wait to have you on.
Harris Faulkner is going to anchor a new program at 1 p.m., Outnumbered Overtime. And Sandra Smith is going to be with our very own Bill Hemmer at 9. So what a great announcement, and, just showing you the future of the Fox News Channel.
Thank
you. So
you,
enjoy
KG.
it on Monday.
Thank you. Oh, I don't like to talk about myself. Okay, but Juan is next, so he's...
Oh, so, I don't usually support the Trump administration, but I'm a fair-minded person. And so I like to give credit where credit's due. Ivanka Trump, senior advisor to her dad in the White House, is spearheading an effort that's very close to my heart. It's a move to expand STEM programs, that's, science, technology, engineering, and math, in American schools. The president directed the Department of Education to invest $200 million in grant money to the program, the private sector kicking in another $300 million. And today, Ivanka Trump was promoting the effort in the Detroit public schools. So, you know what? Hats off. That was good work, Trump administration.
And she's taking a coding class herself.
Is that right?
With her daughter. No, I could never do that.
Me at some
No,
point.
I could do the 2 o'clock. No, I can't code. Jesse, you're next.
All right, I'd like to welcome my parents back from Africa. They just returned from a safari. They were in East Africa, in Tanzania, and in the north and western
your mom's
Serengeti.
beautiful.
They were there, visited the Maasai family. They were in the Rift Valley Children's Village and saw a lot of great people and a lot of great animals. So they got back and they are home today. So welcome back, Mom and Dad.
You know what?
Talk to them
Jesse?
about that trip.
I lived there once.
You did?
Yeah, and hung out with the Maasai young men. Boy, they know I was an American.
What an incredible trip. So happy for you.
I know.
Yeah,
I
they
want
had
to
a
talk
great
to them
time.
about it.
That's a
Very
great
nice.
trip.
Brian thinks he has the best one more
I
thing.
did until
so
your
go ahead.
announcement, and of course the vacation has been great. All right, so there is one new sitcom, traditional sitcom, that's captured the world's attention and certainly mine. My body double, Kevin James, is starring in Kevin Can Wait. He brought it back to Long Island. He brought me behind the scenes, and I saw the magic of his comedy. And you know, he's one of the funniest people, most successful in the business. But they have a problem. They wanted to bring Leah Remini back, and they had to get rid of his wife. So in a sitcom, how do you get rid of the woman and keep people laughing? That is Erin Hayes. Last night, we found out in season 1. Watch.
You gotta be kidding me, not again.
What is it?
It's from your mom's gym. It's a postcard. Haven't seen you. We miss you. You know what? So do I.
Okay, you know what? Give me that. I will call them right now. It's been over a year since she died.
You can't kill off somebody like that in a comedy. That is not the way you kill off somebody in a comedy. Kevin James,
How
you're a
would you do
genius.
it?
Here's what you do. I'll go bring it back. You don't acknowledge it. Just put the new person in. Like, for example, on Bewitched. We never asked who the new Darren was. We accepted the new Darren. Remember the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Yes.
There were 2 Aunt Vivians.
And
we
Brian thought
accepted
that
the
was
2
the
Aunt
best
Vivians.
one more thing.
That was fantastic.
Check your DVRs, never know the time. I'll see you at 10 p.m. tonight.
You
Special
didn't like
report.
that?